What's up, everybody? Here at the Toronto's North American podcast with none other than Mr. Michael Dancy over here. And I'm going to go ahead and flip things over to you and give yourself, let the people know, give yourself a brief introduction about who you are and what you do.
My name is Mike Dancy, and I don't know what I do.
Yeah, that sounds like all of us.
I have a bunch of things on the go. Like I work 9 to 5 like everyone else, and then I have a YouTube channel on the side, and I make a podcast, and I walk my dog a lot, and I wave my fist at the neighbors and tell them to get off my lawn, and I act like just like any other old white guy. I mean, it's what I do best.
Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. Okay, I like that. So my question was, one of the main reasons I wanted to do a podcast with you was I wanted you to tell us a little bit about what kind of pushed you and made you get into wanting to be involved with computers and technology the way you have in the past, and had your channel on there and were showing people how to do repairs and whatnot.
Oh, okay. That part of it. Yeah. Well, funny story. The YouTube part of it just kind of fell into my lap. Like like anyone else, I remember seeing YouTube in 2005 and posted a few videos of my dog doing whatever. And then it just started going into unboxing videos, and then they started getting some traction.
Right.
And I think it was around the point when I hit like 1 million views that I realized, oh, people are actually watching these. And then it just led into doing what I like doing, which is tech reviews and such. So actually, though, funny, as if I known it was about the tech part, I would have actually had some props ready. But I actually got on our computer today. I'm quite excited about, and I can't wait to make a video on.
What type of computer is it?
Oh, it's a TRS-80 MC10, which is a 1980.
I have no idea what that means. Oh, okay. Nice.
Exciting, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, very.
All the way from 1982. Like, that's so, it's like in a box, and it's mint, and it's vintage, and it's beautiful, and I love everything about it.
You say that, but it appeared like it was open box item.
Oh, yeah, well, it's open box. It's, it's 40 years old.
Oh, yeah, holy, that's crazy. I was going to ask you, what type of dog do you
have? She's a foxhound named Fairy, and then before that, we had a blue tick. We had lots of hound dogs. The one before that was a Tree and Walker hound called Squeaky. Squeaky just died, so I'm very sad.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's
it happens, man.
To lose a companion like that. But I did want to tell you that I wore something just for you today. Something special, and it's on me, and I'm it's time for the big reveal. That's right, man.
Star Wars shirt. There it is.
Yeah, I seen you rocking one in one of yours, in one of your podcasts, and I was like, come on, man, I gotta represent.
Yeah, that's excellent. I have a few of those. I try and wear a piece of Star Wars clothing every day. Today's laundry day, so I'm lucky I'm even wearing pants.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, sorry, ladies, you don't get a free show today.
Oh yeah. They're missing so much.
Yeah. How'd you become a fan of the wars? Just growing up?
Well, yeah. Well, it's my age, man. It was we went and saw it in the theater when it came out. Yeah. And then it was like the first set of toys I ever really got, and it's just like anyone else. You just kind of fall in love with it and you stick with it. Some kids are raised on Pokemon, and my kids are going to be kind of glued to Fortnite, for example. So it's what you're raised with.
So what do you think of the new series?
Well, I like it. We mean like Mandalorian and such? Or you're referring to like
not really the Mandalorian and such. I meant more like after the Force Awakens and stuff like that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't like the prequels as much, but I remember when we were in the theaters in like 1981 or 1983, 83, after was it Return of the Jedi came out? And we thought this would make a perfect like if they did 9 episodes, because we watched an interview with George Lucas and he goes, "Yeah, I want to do 9 episodes." And we got stuck in our head, and then we waited so long to wait for the prequels back in the late 90s. Yeah. And then as they just released the last 3, then that's when it all came together 40 years later.
Yeah, it's interesting to see it all come together. I mean, personally, for me, I got into it during the prequels, and I know a lot of people that are older, they don't like the prequels so much. The guys that started with the original trilogy, and here's the thing: I really do like parts of the prequels, and there's some stuff I don't like about it. It's just when I compare like the original A New Hope, like with Luke Skywalker, compared to like the Phantom Menace with the prequels, to me they look like two completely different movies. So I really appreciate what George was trying to do there, which was like that show the two different worlds. And I felt like I was getting a different experience with both movies, even though, yeah, I can pretty much agree that we all universally dislike Jar Jar, right? But
Yeah.
when I saw A New Hope and I saw The Force Awakens, when I saw The Force Awakens compared to A New Hope, I thought that it was so similar and such a redo. It was like just a reboot. Like
Yeah.
that's what I didn't like so much about it. I would rather have had George come and try something new and be innovative than see the same shit I've seen in the past, personally.
Oh, and I loved Rogue One, and the ending of Rogue One when it kind of transitioned into New Hope, that was phenomenal. I
I
just
loved
love
it
that.
when Darth Vader came down the hallway.
Yeah, and he was just kicking ass, because when you watch the first one, you just see this, this robot kind of guy, and you don't know what he is, so you have no context of what he's capable of.
Of course, yeah. So now I have to ask, what what do you know about mining with these game cards when it comes to cryptocurrency? Have you heard about this? Have you explored this? Is it something new? Let's see what you know about it. If
Yeah,
it,
I'm pretty aware of it.
yeah.
Like I've been following Bitcoin for a long time,
Mhm.
2014 maybe,
Mhm.
maybe a little sooner, I guess, whenever it first came out. And the thing with Bitcoin mining is you gotta, you can only use so many certain cards with it, like whatever the GPU is in that card. For
Yeah.
example, my one machine behind me here,
Yeah.
it's a Xeon, like a dual Xeon machine, and it's running 2.5 gig video cards,
Yeah.
which is the GeForce 5000. So
Yeah.
those are more meant for video editing.
Yeah.
They don't, though, have the GPUs inside them to do mining.
Right.
So I played around with something called Miner's Gate, and then I tried Nice Hash and everything else. But I'm not really into mining them. I'd rather just wait till I see like a dip in the market and just grab it then and buy it through an exchange.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's just gone up so exponentially, like the mining difficulty for specifically Bitcoin, that it's really, really tricky. And like, I wouldn't, personally, me either. I feel like you have to be at the industrial level to potentially mine it. So doing it from your house, it just doesn't quite cut it the way it used to, like say 10 years ago. But I've heard a lot of people turning a decent profit on Ethereum, which would be like the secondary. If it just it has a different application and different use case. But people I seen a guy make a rig for about 100 grand, put a bunch of miners together, and now annually after the first year he'll be able to get his money back for the upfront cost, and then he'll be able to streamline decent money from it. Now, something like if you were to be able to get like a return for a couple of $100 a month, would you be more interested or inclined to potentially want to mine some crypto like Ethereum as opposed to Bitcoin?
Well, yeah, well, it all depends on what kind of coin it is too. So, for example, like Dogecoin, you need like an
Yeah.
ASCII miner, and
Yeah.
then if you're going to mine Ethereum, you need something a bit hardcore.
Yeah.
And you can buy actual rigs. I think they're around $700 to $1,000,
Yeah.
where it's just a couple of GPUs inside a motherboard,
Yeah.
and then you configure that remotely. Like you log into the IP and you enter in your addresses. For example, you receive addresses and it goes out there and does the mining. And a buddy of mine has got a few of those, and I think he brings it around 60 US a day, which isn't too bad. And like, I mean, you figure if he paid $1,000 each, that means they're going to be paid off in 2 months, which means that the other 8 months of the year, 10 months of the year, he's making profit on them. So
Oh,
yeah, I wouldn't turn that down. But once again, the problem with Bitcoin is you get it in your wallet or in your exchange, wherever you're going to keep it.
yeah.
Then you have to transfer it to a bank. And I found that some banks just don't like dealing with it. Like RBC doesn't even deal with Coinbase anymore on Binance,
Yeah.
but the TD does. And who knows until the TD says, well, we're done with this as well, and just stops.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's in a place where they're eventually gonna have to capitulate and get into it and make those offers to their customers where they're more open and transparent with making your transactions easier in regards to that, or they're gonna get left in the dust. Um, it, we can talk about that offline about, how you can, there are like ways to do your transactions without having to constantly kind of be brick walled by the institutions and stuff like that. So there are solutions and off ramps and stuff like that. So I'm glad you brought up the video card, the expense of it, because I didn't want to make this podcast about cryptocurrency and stuff like that. I know that's not your forte, if you will. I just wanted to generally keep it about computers, but since we're on the subject, I wanted to ask, I remember I was recently looking at some graphic cards that I potentially wanted to get for mining. And if I were to go to NVIDIA directly to the website, they're selling for about what you said, actually about $600 to $700. But because they're all sold out as a huge result of mining, also as video gamers with the pandemic going on, a lot of people, and they're just constantly not available. And the ones that are difficult to find and rare, but when they're readily available, they're going for about $1,400, $1,500, even though the regular retail price from the distributor would have been around $600 to $700. How do you feel about guys that market up to these really sky high valuations? Like, do you think it's kind of scumbaggy for the regular people that just want to get their hands on a good video card and play some video games or mine or whatever they want to do?
Yeah, well, it's like holding anything. I mean, if you're going to try and squeeze the market, you're going to get squeezed in return if you're not careful. But and it all depends what card it is too. If it's like a 1660 or a 1650, they're pretty commonplace. If you're talking like a GTX, what was it, like a 660 or something, that you aren't going to make pennies a day. Whereas I run, like I said, these GE, the GeForce 5000s, and well, geez, to buy those things new, they're like $7,000 each, which is no 6,000 maybe. I was just looking at them too, and they're like crazy money. But yeah, well, it's a market. That's all there is to it. And you'll see places like Best Buy, Canada Computers, and Newegg that every once in a while might show us sold out. But if you go to the store and just kind of keep going back and forth every day, you might find them.
Yeah.
You just got to shop around.
Yeah.
And the machines I was talking about earlier, those mining rigs, they actually come with a couple of cards. I just don't know which cards they come with, because that might just be clones, for example, like knockoffs.
Yeah.
So who knows what's in them?
Yeah. And you're right. The market's the ultimate referee. And if they decide that this is the X amount of value for something, it's tough to argue with that. I just kind of can't help but feel a little bit of sympathy for, people that might not have that much in their wallet per se, to go out and shell out X amount of dollars for, even if they just want to do something simple like play a video game, right? Because I almost feel as though a lot of people are taking these video cards hostage. And they're like, listen, unless you're going to shell out the big bucks, you ain't getting your hands on it. So it's kind of bittersweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you also don't have to mind so much, because you can also just take your market and say you bought something like Litecoin when it's like $128, for example, and you hold it for a week or two, it hits 145. You take your Litecoin, then you exchange it for like XLR, and then you just keep ramping up, and it's like Forex, like foreign exchange.
Yeah.
And you just you sell a little bit of this, and you hope that it climbs, and you grab something else, and it's almost like just swinging from vine to vine, trying to build your equity there. Or you just throw in like $20 to $50 a week of your own money, like through the exchange. It's funny. I was thinking of making a whole video on it, but man, it is so complicated. It's describing like.
I would want to be involved.
I was going to say describing it is. Oh yeah, it's a nightmare.
It can be quite a complex process, but really and truly, to save you a lot of hassle, right off the top, I can confidently say that 98% of coins are bullshit. The only two that really matter are Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's, we might have these other rare use cases where something might spring up and be of actual practicality, but most things are just, they're nonsense and a waste of time, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. What I like about it is I had this whole conversation a while ago with someone. I was trying to send them money. So you go to do an e-transfer, and the e-transfer is really only good in Canada. And I asked some of my American friends, I'm like, I'll just shoot you the money. Like I'll send you an e-transfer. And they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
because they call, they just don't use it. And then that's why like PayPal because PayPal was you just kind of email them the money and Bob's your uncle. It worked out really well.
Exactly.
But now with Bitcoin and Ethereum or whatever it might be, you just got to get their address and send them the money that way. And I've done a few deals that way. I bought a whole bunch of things with Bitcoin in the past. Now I kind of regret it because it's like when I was buying things, the Bitcoin was only like $5,000.
Right.
You know,
they're like, oh man,
So-
why did I shell out? Did I just trade $1 million for a pizza?
yeah. It's like this YouTuber I know the other day. He was saying my Tesla cost me $770,000
Yeah,
because he bought it. It was like $80,000 or whatever it was.
yeah,
And if he had taken that money and just bought the Tesla stock instead,
yeah.
it would have gone up 10 times.
Oh,
But
man.
the same thing with Bitcoin is you never, until they find a way of making it so that one coin equals $1 US.
Mhm.
And there is a coin out there that does that. I forget
Tether.
what it's called, but
I think it's Tether. It's tied to the US dollar. So it's,
yeah.
it technically it runs very parallel with that price. It's
See,
called,
that would be
it's called a stable coin, but yeah.
right. They just need to do something like that. Whereas, Bitcoin, like they say, is a bit like gold, where it's going up and down in value. And LTC, like Litecoin, was supposed to be the silver, but now maybe it's Ethereum. Who knows?
Right, yeah. And I love the Litecoin guys. I'm sure that they're a promising third. I think that what they're doing is pretty good. But I just see the most innovations and practicality happen on the Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchains. It's really insane. I'm sure, throughout the years you might have done some freelance work or anything like that and accepted a few coins or whatever crypto, and you're not thinking much of it, right? You're just like, well, I got a couple of $100 in this, might as well trade it off. It's not really going much further than this. But once you go down that rabbit hole and you learn about this stuff, it's life-changing, right? But for me, that's more like my field and what my interest is. So it's more like something I kind of am more interested and inclined to be cared about, to care about. Whereas I find you're more of like a hardware, nuts and bolts kind of guy from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, Bitcoin's not my forte.
Yeah.
I dabble in it just like anything else. But I think what really set me off on it was a while ago. I was listening to this podcast called the Dark Web Diaries. You ever listen to that one?
And no, I haven't actually.
Oh, super. It's basically a guy that just interviews like hackers.
Yeah.
So he was interviewing this one guy who uses Bitcoin to buy drugs on the Silk Road.
Oh yeah, that I haven't heard the podcast, but I know the story of the Silk Road and how they were transacting for all these illegal stuff and what have you. Yeah. Go ahead though. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really what caught my attention with it, because it's such a, like I said before, it's a unique way of sending money back and forth. Absolutely. And even in large amounts, and it's not really trackable.
Yeah. It's borderless, right?
Yeah.
I can send $1 to Pakistan right now, where my family is from and stuff like that. Literally $1 with absolutely no intermediaries, no headaches. It's fairly instant with no problems. It's borderless. It's immutable, and it's transparent. There's a ledger. It's trackable and stuff like that. There's just so much. And as far as like amounts and stuff like that go, that's where a lot of these regulations and stuff like that come into play, because they want to do anti-money laundering. Oh, you're buying drugs or you're buying bad stuff. But the number one thing people use to buy something on the black market has nothing. Bitcoin is nothing but a little drop in the bucket. They prefer cash. So that's not what you use is to purchase something bad. What the item you're using to buy that thing with isn't gonna prevent if somebody from doing something bad if they want to do something bad. I mean, bank robbers are going to use shoes, they're going to use cell phones, and they're going to use masks to rob a bank. Are we going to illegalize all that? Are we going to make all that stuff illegal because they're using it? I mean, people are going to do bad things. We don't have to get rid of things that have real life, good, positive implications for humanity and for everyone at large, just because of a few bad use cases. And anti-money laundering, it seems like it's not even working. They're giving so many fines and watching people and stuff like that. But I don't really think if people are going to do some negative stuff, those footholds that the government has to try and prevent people from doing such things, I feel like they're not. I think they're serving the people in the institutions in the centralized community as opposed to the community and the citizens at large. That's my rant.
That's a valid point too. And though I think the new robbers are actually on Reddit, and the way that they, no, seriously, if you go to Exodus wallet, like the Exodus subreddit, and you say, oh, I'm having a problem with my wallet, for example.
Yeah.
This guy will message you, and his username is like Exodus Wallet Support.
Yeah.
And say, oh, well, click on this link that I just sent you and enter your 12 words for your wallet, and I'll take care of everything. And meanwhile, you do all that because you're an idiot, and poof, your wallet's gone.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to watch out for these guys on the web and these hackers and stuff like that. They're not messing around.
Yeah, it's a new way of being conned, and you're always got to keep your eyes open. I mean, I wouldn't want to trust my mom with it because I'm sure she'd lose it in a heartbeat. But when I'm 65, 70, and maybe Bitcoin might be a bit more accepted, am I going to get scammed? Am I going to lose my life savings? Who knows? Just because I might not understand technology at the time. Though I do try and stay on top of it. So
yeah, it's in a space like that, it is difficult because things are changing at such a rapid pace. You really have to keep your finger on the pulse. I can turn my head away for 48 hours, and by the time I come back to it, it could be a whole new ball game, and it can be a bit like the Wild West. But the securities and the infrastructures and the on-ramps that are building for it are going to be very, very safe. I can damn near guarantee that. I've seen a lot of craziness happening, but the comparison I would make is when you get a shady email that's been happening since the onset of the internet, where you get a shady email from a guy in Nigeria saying, listen, I need a surgery, I need you to wire me $100, whatever it is, and just send it to this email, or go to this exchange and send it. I mean, we also have to kind of be a bit like educated and take kind of we have to take control of what we do and use our own smarts and wits to curb stuff like that. Because if I send $100 to some guy $100, to a guy who emailed me from Nigeria, it's kind of, I was kind of being very silly myself, right? But with these new technologies, yes, you can definitely be open to a lot of scam artists and stuff like that. But if you get a general sense of what you're doing, you'll be okay for the most part. I think in the future that's coming. Like, you're right, I wouldn't trust it with my grandma or my mom. She probably would lose it. I agree with you in that sense. But that's why we need to make the user interface as easy as sending an email and not make it so complicated, and that will definitely ease those tensions.
So you broke up in that last question there. I think
I was just saying that I think when we make that, did you hear the part where I said about sorry, we're having a little bit of a connectivity issue, guys, a little bit of a storm going on. Yeah, did you hear the part where I said about making
I heard the part about
the grandma?
I heard the part about your grandma. Like when you're talking about when you're, and then everything after that just fell apart.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I was just saying that we have to make the ease of use case as easy as sending an email. And when it's as easy as sending an email, grandma won't have to worry because it'll be lots of protection and security for her. I had said it a little bit better before, but now trying to reword it, I kind of forgot some of the stuff. But
that's okay. You can edit all that part out.
Yeah, exactly. We'll edit in the laughter and the strippers and stuff like that afterwards.
Do you edit your podcast, just out of curiosity?
I do edit some small parts of it, small portions, but honestly, I keep it very organic. I don't do much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, obviously you got to make it easy. That's all there is to it. I can certainly agree with that. And it's, God, there's scams every day.
Oh yeah.
Every day you see something.
Yeah, it's pretty scary out there, but that's, I think a lot of that comes from lack of education in the space and naivety and, prowlers and people who want to take advantage. And unfortunately, they exist in every industry. I got a call the other day from this on my phone that said, hello, this is the CRA. You have been convicted of some federal offense for tax evasion or something like that. And you need to you need to stay on this line right now, or the cops are going to come and get you. That's they didn't say it like that, but they said the cops are going to find you and arrest you. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. So they're like, just stay on the line. I was like, all right, cool. I couldn't wait to see who was going to come online to try to scam me. And the guy, he comes on the line. He's like, yes, hi, CRA. I'm like, yeah, hi. How can I be of service? I just got a really weird phone call. And as soon as I felt as though, as soon as he could tell that I was decently well spoken, because I got in a couple of sentences, it kind of scared him off. it kind of spooked him. And he's like, you know what? I don't think this guy's going to go for it. And they kind of pick and choose, right? So you see, that's been happening since the advent of, taxes. So there's always going to be shady individuals in every industry. We just have to weed them out.
Oh God, it happens to my mom almost every day.
Yeah.
But and she's like pushing 80. But once again, to come, like I said about the education, is I told her all this.
Yeah.
So now she knows how to weed them out properly. And the same with my in-laws, because my in-laws almost got hooked by those people that said, "Oh, we got a relative of yours from old Europe, and you've inherited $30 million. And all you have to do is send like this finder's fee of $250 and blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
So I went through that with them and showed them, like, once they said, "Oh, we need to use a fax machine." And I said, "Well, why do you want to use a fax machine?" Because this guy would only take the stuff via fax. And I wish I don't know where I put them, but they started getting like real looking letters in the mail. And the same with all the people that go to their church.
Yeah.
So I asked them to collect them all for me, because I was going to make a video about that at one point, and it never happened either. Yeah. But the letters look really authentic, from like this lawyer, and that the person's last name, and saying that we found an ancient, not ancient, but like an old property in your name, and we want to sell it, and we need you to sign all these documents. That's why they want to do it by fax.
Yeah.
And my in-laws, they literally were on the cusp of sending this guy $5,000. And lucky for me, the bank teller stopped them, because they went to the bank to withdraw like $5,000 in cash. And the bank teller's like, "Whoa, what are you doing? And why?" And he's like, "Oh, I got to go buy some Apple iTunes cards so that my lawyer can proceed with this property purchase." And I think once he said it to someone else and they realized, he's like, "Well, wait a second. What lawyer do I know that takes Apple iTunes cards? I don't know any."
Man, talk about dodging a bullet there. You see, and luckily he had a good a bystander that said, "You know what, I think something's going on here," and he pumped the brakes on him. And it's really tragic what some people will do to make a buck. It's really, really shameful. And I mean, you think of it, these are just scams that are coming in, that are inbound from a bunch of strangers that are just like an illusion on a screen, that are on the other side of the world or wherever they may be. A voice on a phone, or whatever, a shady person emailing you. What happens, I'm sure, even in our own personal lives, how many of your own friends, people in your own actual social group, will come up to you and say, "Listen, I got a nice business idea. I just need a little, a little Kickstarter," right? So I've been there. I'm sure a lot of people have. So it can be, I think everyone can be very fallible in life. Like, God knows I've definitely had my fair share of deals that went sour, and looking back on it, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Well, dude, I'll tell you, I think the next big business opportunity for anyone out there is to educate people on the scams out there. Like a buddy of mine, he goes around schools all over Canada, and he teaches young kids how to look out for people who are trying to, kidnap them or get them to send nudes. And this is dealing with kids, because you figure adults would have some kind of experience behind them.
Yeah.
But kids have no experience. And especially if they're underage and they're hopping on Instagram or something, then all of a sudden someone starts complimenting them and grooming them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And their parents might not have access to their phone, for example, but that's his job. As he go, well, not his job, but that's his business, as he goes around to all these schools and educates kids. And we talk all the time. Like, he's like an he's an old police officer anyway, but
yeah,
I think that's, if I was going to start a new business right now, I would probably start with like old age home. Well, maybe not now with old age homes.
Yeah.
But when they get back to normal.
Yeah.
And just teaching them the basics of looking out for scams.
Absolutely.
They need to be aware of this.
Yeah, they definitely do. There is awareness and stuff like that, customer helplines and these preventative measures, but a lot of the times they're just not sufficient. Like, I remember, speaking of which, before we change subjects, I know I'm probably boring you to death with some of this. It was I saw a Bitcoin ATM and I just called the customer helpline. I know what I'm doing, but I just wanted to see how they try to prevent fraud and people from being taken advantage of and what have you. And the guy, he was informative on the other side, but I said, I still think that there's more you can do to prevent a lot of this stuff, because it's to the point where the people that work at convenience stores, that own the convenience store or whatever, they are doing like what the guy you pointed out at the bank said, the bystander that just comes and says, well, what are you doing? It's like, I'm doing this iPhone card thing, whatever. And they have to come and stop fraud. But is that the convenience store guy's job, or is he just there to sell you like a pack of smokes and, you know, candy? So clearly the preventative measure you've taken, the customer helpline that's slapped onto the ATMs, not really doing what it could be doing. And I told them about that, but in there, I think a lot of people are very like vicious in business, where they're like, can this turn a profit for me by hiring somebody or employing somebody or doing more to prevent these scams? And unfortunately, you just got to be careful, like with the people themselves that just don't care. They're like, they don't care about who gets scammed, even though they're not scamming anyone. They don't care to put out the effort like the way your friend, the ex-cop, does. He seems like he's doing it because he has this background of being a police officer, and he has that heart to want to be in the community and be actively involved to help people, right? So a lot of it has to come from like the spiritual and soul side. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, 100%. And I think the ATMs could put a big stop to that if instead of having a sticker, they had like a 10-second video roll just before you make the withdrawal saying, if you are taking this money out, or if you're buying this Bitcoin for this reason, or this reason, 90% chance it's a scam.
Right.
We suggest that you contact someone. Absolutely. And then a local phone number, or cops, or whoever. And that's, I'm surprised that the government hasn't, well, I'm surprised that actually not the government, but like the BDC or like the banking, I guess the banking police of Canada haven't said, well, let's do some TV ads to try and stop fraud and focus on, because they must lose a fortune in fraud every year. So if they were to just take that initiative and say, well, let's make some TV ads or some internet-based ads where we can inform people of some fraudulent activities that do happen, then maybe that might raise awareness as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to align myself more with along a lot of what your friend is doing, because I do feel we're a bit desensitized. We have so many screens in front of us, so many phones, so much Netflix, so much television, so much blah, 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 that it's just like this. There's so much information coming in that you kind of you can become unaware as to how you might be being taken advantage of, as in comparison to when I grew up. And I know you're a little bit more distinguished than me, ahead of me in time in that sense. But the only people I knew when I was in my teenage years or as a kid was just my 5 neighbors. So if I needed to get information, I would go to a phone book. I know that doesn't exist anymore. Nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. I would go and talk to my neighbor and be, hey, what's going on with this? Or is this so-and-so? That was the way. And till this day, despite this is the age of information, I get it. I can just type anything on Google. I don't need to go through those methods anymore. I still feel as though those ways are much more effective than reading something online or videos and stuff like that. Not that they don't matter and they don't help, but when in person is always more informative, and that human touch, I don't know, there's something about it, and I'm a big like supporter of that. I know it sounds a bit foreign to say that these days, but I like the in-person stuff personally.
Well, it's funny you say that though. I mean, like, yeah, we're in the middle of not the middle, like we're in the start really of the information revolution. Like, remember well, you obviously don't remember, but the printing press came out, for example, and that completely revolutionized the way we work as humans, because then all of a sudden a lot of these jobs went from being farmers to office workers, whereas now we're in the information revolution. And you can see with all the disinformation what's happening with like the riots in Capitol Hill and just people taking sides, and companies like Cambridge Analytica, which are kind of dividing us by taking all of our data points and seeing where our sweet spots are, that they can make us divided against each other. But that also happened when the printing press came out, because no one knew how to read. Then all of a sudden this machine comes along, makes information easily available. And then people took that information and started feeding people what they wanted them to hear. You know what I mean? It's so we don't hear about all the revolutions and wars that happened after the printing press was invented. And right now there's like suppression on information as well. I'm going down a rabbit hole that I don't know what I'm talking about here, but it's
I definitely think you do. From what I gather, when the printing press came out, they tried really hard to suppress that even. I remember I was doing like a bit of history on that and like a little bit of reading on it, and they didn't appreciate the fact that the commoners were able to have access to this information because now they could no longer be in control of what you're getting, because the more control the government, or in those days the emperor or the king or whoever, whatever village you were from, when they lose those controls, they hate it, because that is just decreases their power that they have over the civilization to do whatever they see fit and stuff like that. And it's so funny because here's the even crazier part about what you said. It wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't.
That's the really freaky part. It's like, I just had this conversation with my brother the other day too, because it was on the Joe Rogan podcast. Actually, I was watching, and it was that 100 years ago. Okay, let's stretch it out a little bit more, because now we're 2021. 120 years ago, you could be in a village, and wherever you lived, or whatever township, whatever village, whatever small farm, doesn't matter, and a few guys on horseback could ride in to your town and just not agree with the way you were doing things, and just cut your head off and just ride off into the forest on a horse. And there'd be no legal implication. There would be no fight. There would be no courts. There'd be no justice. There would just be that happen. And then you just be like the town of 20, 30 people. And you're like, oh yeah, that guy just got his head cut off the other day because he didn't agree with that guy that just came through on a horse for a quick second. Like, it's so recent. It's so recent.
Dude, it was happening 50 years ago.
Yeah, even that. What part of history did I miss here with the 50 years ago? Is there a specific place there, the event you're talking about?
Well, I'm just saying the fact that like cops could just go in there and kill somebody, like a race-related murder, for example, and just say, "Oh, the guy was resisting arrest, so we killed him."
Yeah,
and you know what? No one's going to deny it.
He had to give an explanation. He had to come out and say, "Well, he was resisting arrest." But going further back, no need for an explanation. I just didn't like that guy.
Yeah. But now with the advent of cameras everywhere, and people are amplified in their voices with the use of the internet, then hopefully we'll get rid of all that kind of just
a lot of that injustice that happens, a lot of the abuse that happens that comes with power. That's another very it's a really strange subject to tackle, just because people want the best possible guy, like in terms of like integrity, strength, knowledge for this job where they might have to do something or be called upon to do the impossible. So when there's a guy who simply is just arguing with a officer or somebody in law enforcement, they want a cop to be super nice and super understanding, which he should be. But then when there's somebody who's about to be on the verge of murder, child abuse, or rape, or any of these horrible things, they want the toughest possible cop to come down and just rain down hell upon that criminal. So it's like, what are you asking for? You know what I mean? You want both? What's going on?
Dude, yeah, I'm not stoned enough for this conversation, but it's I feel sorry for the officers who are placed in that position.
Yeah.
And then I feel sorry for the people who are at the mercy of the officers. And, you know, we can't expect all the cops to be 100% ethical and proper. We can only hope that they are. But, you know, we've all met some who aren't, and we've met some cops who are awesome. And I think that we almost need to take like the application process for officers, not just, you know, paper and physical, like not just their marks and grades and their physical attributes, but we almost need to stick them on an island and just see how they cope like amongst each other, and how their skills on dealing with certain problems are. And it's not a 3-month or a 1-year long hiring process. It's something that needs to be like a couple years long, because you're trusting this person with the laws and with a weapon. So dude, I don't want to even go down that topic, because we could be talking for we could be talking 4 or 5 hours just about the injustices in the world, and we'd still get nowhere, because we'd be going in circles.
Yeah, we wouldn't make too much progress. Yeah, it's I hear you. It's a very delicate subject and all that. And yeah, when it comes to just giving out trust in general with who who do you call upon to do these type of things, right? And yeah, it's a weird one. Anyways, changing gears. How much time do we have, by the way? So I know you said you had about half hour. I don't want to keep you too
Yeah,
long.
I got a few things to do, but we can do another 10 or 15 minutes or so. So it's 4:30 now, so 4:45, say.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I'm enjoying the conversation. I wasn't sure where this was going to go.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you though, dude, you got to either get a different phone or do something with your battery or
I
check
know.
your texts.
I know. I really do. And thanks for the recommendation, because that's going to be at the top of the list as soon as this podcast is over. So you're the guy, you're the godfather when it comes to computers. Let's talk more about your specific set of skills that you have. I know we kind of veered off topic there, but I found it, I kind of enjoyed it. Um, what is the top of the line computer in your opinion right now that a guy can get? I've heard of Alienware, and these brands and this and that. I don't know which is the best. I just wanted to hear your 2 cents on it. That was my first question, and it's a two-parter. My second question was, when do you think quantum computing will be a reality?
See, now you're going down. Okay, here's where my knowledge ends. I'll tell you right now. Like when I talk about technology on my YouTube channel and such, I have a certain error that I deal with, like a certain region. So, I started getting the computers in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then I was a technician all the way like through the early 2000s, like an IT guy.
Yeah.
And then I switched over into sales.
Right.
So now I sell, like I do like a lot of e-waste and I sell networking gear, but my knowledge pretty much stops around 2010 of computers. So it's funny, just today I was actually looking at buying a new computer, and I hate to say it, but I was looking at Best Buy just because they had this HP Omen, which was a Ryzen 5 3600, and it's got a GeForce RTX 2060, and it was $1,600. That's retail price at Best Buy. And once again, when you're talking about items that are hard to find, the reason I was looking there was because it was in stock. Whereas if I go to Canada Computers or Newegg and build this machine, I can build it for around, $1,000. So I'm paying 50% more to get a pre-built from a retailer just because it's in stock. But in reality,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but is it worth it to go to Best Buy? And just out of your opinion, is it worth it to buy a computer from Best Buy?
No.
No. Okay.
Not in my, like, for me, it's, I look at it and I go, well, like when I use computers though, I use them for work. So I make money for them. So I don't mind putting the money in there because I'm going to get a bit of a tax break and such.
Yeah.
But for me, I have a warehouse, like 5 warehouses
Yeah.
full of computers that are more than capable.
Yeah.
So for me, just to go to work and grab like an i7 4700 processor with the motherboard and everything I need, add some more RAM to it, add an SSD, and then go buy one of those video cards we were talking about earlier, that is more than enough to play all the games that my kids want to play, like all the top shelf AAA games.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not really worth it. And I deal a lot with laptops and stuff, but my specialty kind of lays in between like retro computers.
Yeah.
Which is when I was showing you that TRS-80 later.
Right.
I really like those. And, like my day-to-day computer, like my work laptop is like a Lenovo T450S, which is like an i7 5600.
Yeah.
And this MacBook Pro, which is an i7 4000, like an i7 4th gen.
Yeah.
So it's probably and my Surface Pro, like my Surface Pro 4, which is like an i5 6th gen, I think. So none of my machines are really up there top end.
Yeah.
And I don't see the need for them for what I use them for.
Right. Yeah.
And for my kids who are like playing, like they're 90% Roblox, Minecraft, and Fortnite.
Right.
So I don't really see them needing like a Ryzen 7 or anything hardcore like that. Though they're beautiful machines, don't get me wrong, but what are you going to use it for? If you're just sitting there and surfing the web and watching YouTube, you really don't need much more than an iPad. And if you do want to do mining, well, that's a whole different machine on its own. So it's a technology, dude. It's always changing. But what I do now, a lot of my time is spent, I get older machines and I rebuild them or refurbish them and give them to kids for their schoolwork, because with this pandemic and all these kids are working from home, a lot of kids are stuck using either broken iPads with cracked glass or just shitty old computers. And you can't let the tools of a child hold them back from getting good grades. So I'm trying to get them half decent machines, and that's where a lot of my time and effort is going now. And going into quantum computing, I mean, dude, I don't think it's going to be around for a while. I think we're going to hit AI, like artificial intelligence, before we hit quantum computing. And then when the two get together, like the IBM Watson, for example, then I think we're all fucked.
Okay.
Like, I think that, well, if you're worried about losing a job to technology now, when that happens, I mean, all the trades will be automated. Like, well, they're already automated when it comes to stocks and such. But then we'll start seeing automated trades of Bitcoin, and we're going to see like my jobs, like sales, almost will be automated as well. Actually, they're already automated. Like Walmart has this same day delivery program where the way they keep their stores stocked is just because of the point of sale system. When I scan something, it tells the stock, okay, we need more of these at this store.
Yeah.
And it's all automated, so the only real jobs in the future will be logistics, like managing the warehouse, not driving, because all the vehicles will be self-driving.
Right.
And dude, we're all going to be out of a job soon unless we think of something new.
I'm 50-50 on that. I think things are going to go in tandem, where it's like there's going to be a dematerialization of a job. Like the elevator man disappeared, the newspaper has disappeared, Google got rid of that library, Netflix got rid of Blockbuster, so these jobs are disappearing. You're right on that. Like this iPhone got rid of the Kodak. There's no longer a guy where I go to get my photos developed. Absolutely. But there's an Uber driver, and now there's going to be cars that are they're going to have the robots driving them, whatever Tesla's doing. I forgot what it's called, automation driving or whatever. And yeah, they're constantly disappearing. But I think, like, it takes me back to what I heard recently. I heard Elon Musk and them talking about it. They said, for example, music can be made by robots now. Like AI can create like a melody, but when you listen to it, it sounds like shit. Like it's horrible. There's something about like the human harping on a guitar or a flute or whatever their instrument, or singing or whatever they do, that is like beautiful. This speaks to like what's beyond this, this life we're dressed in, right? So I think that there will be places and times for us to be in conjunction. However, yes, a lot of jobs will be going. How it all plays out, it's so tough to see. It's like looking at a very grainy image of what the future could potentially look or not look like. It's just like if World War III breaks out with Russia or something, and one of these idiots sends off the A-bomb. I mean, technically, it's within the realm of possibility. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but like it's tough to call what can happen in the next 20 years with what you have even said previously on the first question. Was you're a guy that likes to be practical. Like you like to keep it with what you like to use the tool for what you need it for. Like when a guy golfs, he's not going to use every single 9-iron, a wedge, or this and that. It's like if your kids just want to go on YouTube and just stream a YouTube video, they don't need the $20,000 mega processor computer. They just need a shitty, probably iPad, right? So it's kind of like, it kind of correlates into the same thing with what we're talking about here, which is that these what could happen, what's possible, what the future looks like. It's a very tough call to make when we're moving at the fastest technological pace and evolution that we ever have in human history. Like what my phone can do today compared to what it could do 10 years ago, it's like a night and day difference in just a small time span of 10 years, which is the blink of an eye. And in a human's lifespan, or decades and human history. So what is coming down what's next? Oh man, hopefully quantum computing, though, on that note, is that I think that with what quantum computing can attack or do or help with, there will be also lots of defense mechanisms, because there's lots of people like Lockheed Martin, big companies, that are scared of quantum computer comes around and just hacks and steals all of Equifax's information or leaks out some government documents. But to that, do you think that there's going to be good defense mechanisms for that? This might be something you know more about than me.
Well, I'll tell you, the best thing I ever did was go to like Equifax and TransUnion and lock my credit reports. So nothing could be done without them calling me and asking for my code word, which there's two of them. So I asked them for one, and they asked me for one.
Like a 2FA, like a two-factor?
Well, yeah, but it's words of the live person. So it's not like a text, because anyone can clone your phone and take your SIM card.
Scary.
So they actually have to call me and they say, okay, Mike, what's your magic word? And I'll say, well, what's your magic word? And they'll tell me, and vice versa. And if they don't have the right word, I don't give my answer.
Yeah.
And that is locking down because I don't need any more credit. I have all the, once you reach a certain age, you don't need any more. You don't really need to apply for credit.
Yeah, you're rich.
Yeah, well, yeah, no. But I'm just saying, in general, you're
like, why would a rich person need life insurance? The same shit.
Well, I always suggest life insurance, but that's just my 2 cents. But we're in Canada, well, anyway, we're going a little bit off topic there, but I forget where we were going a second ago, but when you were talking about the jobs, for example, in quantum computers, I think we're noticing a big gap in people that are doing things. Like when you were saying Boeing, Boeing has all these engineers who are building all this new and cool shit.
Yeah.
And then you have all these guys who are driving for Uber.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like the guys who are driving for Uber are also well educated. They're just kind of in the wrong market. So education is changing as much too. And if you notice, guys like you and I, here we are creating content, and there's been a huge influx lately of people creating content. And I think that's because they're twiddling their thumbs because they have all this time on their hands because their jobs got kind of cut, whether you're a chef or a waiter or whatever it is in the restaurant industry. Well, now you're sitting at home with your thumb up your ass.
Yep.
And they're trying to find stuff to fill their time. So we all start creating all this content and we swamp the market, and not everyone is watching or listening.
Yeah.
All the stuff we have to create.
It's a brave new world. And there's a lot of people want to be more creative and stuff like that. And there's pluses and negatives with everything, like additions and takeaways. Like those people that are now twiddling their thumbs might be getting more in touch with, reality, how they deal with their family, how they are at home now they have to spend more time there. Because before, a place like Toronto, the majority of guys are working to support a home they never even barely only get to sleep in and wake up and they're out the door, come back and you go back to bed and you start work again, right? So it's a strange one, right? And as I remember, there was a recent study that was showing how it's just the territory and the terrain of it all has, with the influx of technology for education itself, like what you mentioned earlier, has changed. Because it used to be that you had to pay say $40,000 for a 1-year tuition to a big fancy Ivy League school or whatever you're going to, and you're going to sit in a lecture hall of 1,000 different students, and there's going to be a professor at the front, and they're going to be teaching you the lesson for the day, and you're struggling in the back to overhear it and jot down your notes, and then you're squeezing out what you can, and then the big test is going to come, and you're like, oh man, did I study hard enough? Did I absorb everything? I hope I don't flunk. Now the education is just like this. There's 1,000 people still attending, but it's a video and I can pause it, I can rewind it, I can learn at my own pace, and I no longer have to pay for housing at a school. I don't have to pay the extra tuition. I don't have to pay the travel, the food, all the expenses that goes into being a student. I can probably get the same education that was offered 10 or 15 years ago for, instead of 40,000, 10,000, because I'm doing it all from home, because it's costing a nickel to stream and get all this information, right? So technology has brought down the costs and made things more accessible and good in a certain way, but it's also made us like objectively more disconnected from certain things, like dating apps, for example. Swipe, 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 swipe. Never get to know anybody. Never talk to anybody. Just there's like no actual meaningful stuff there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that was the best part of going to school was you get at your parents' house and you meet new people and you socialize, and socialization is a big part of working. You don't want to make all those social faux pas when you're at the office, for example. So you fuck up completely when you're in college and university and you make those mistakes and you learn how to interact with people properly. But it's funny. Well, not funny, but some universities now are going to start going bankrupt just because, in fact, actually, I think it's Laurentian University. Is that the one in North Bay or Sudbury? Sudbury, I think. Yeah, they just filed, well, they just let go of a bunch of people because they're not filling the classrooms and they're still paying for all this property.
Right.
I don't know if I mentioned my wife works at a university.
Okay.
So I hear all those like inside baseball talk about them. And I still use my university email address for a lot of things. And dude, it's changing so much. I would like to see free education. Like I'm a bit of a socialist.
Yeah.
But to me, a kid would get free education, and providing that they maintained a certain grade average of like say 80, it's all paid for. And
Right.
but if they start dropping down, then they have to pay back some of those loans. And if they fail, then they got to pay back everything.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because we need an educated workforce, but not everyone's going to be a doctor. I mean, you still need someone out there that's going to be selling shoes or, like taking your order at the drive-through or something. But you also don't want to take people who are well educated and put them into those roles because they're going to be bored shitless. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what the job market is going to be like in 10 years.
Oh, absolutely. It's ever changing.
Scary stuff.
It definitely is. And you just got to kind of wait and see how it plays out. And I'm glad that you got the inside scoop on what's happening behind closed doors at universities with your wife working there and stuff like that. It's got to be interesting to have this interesting home life in that sense.
Well, well, that's the thing. We haven't left the house in like a year, right? Because now my kids are doing online learning and she's upstairs working from home. She stole my green screen. So my YouTube channel has changed a little bit. But yeah, man, it's
to your point about affordability and making things. I believe there were some initiatives spearheaded, and don't shoot me if I'm wrong. I think it might have been a year and a half, 2 years ago. I might have missed it. Where if your family fell into a certain income gap, that if you have a child that say wants to go to, off the top of my head, New York University or whatever it is, and you guys are pulling in less than 70,000. Again, don't bite if I'm making a mistake. Don't attack me on YouTube, guys. But if your family's pulling in less than $70,000, and your kid wants to go to school to be a doctor or whatever they want to do, it doesn't really matter their interest. They can qualify for a certain, if not the whole program free, a big chunk of it.
Well, yeah, like there's OSAP, obviously.
Yeah. But that's like a loan, right? That's more like you got to pay us back. But this was more like if your family's just in a situation, but you're doing well, like you said, above 80 or GPA is good or whatever, scholarship, etc., whatever the case is, you can go and do your education and not have to pay a dime to your program.
Yeah, well, there's grants, obviously. And it's funny, if you're going to apply, well, I think everyone should apply for all the grants.
Yeah.
And you'll find grants that, they come from if you're part of a mosque or a church, sometimes they'll have grants for certain students.
Yeah.
Your neighborhood. I mean, there's grants all over the place. So if you're thinking of going to, this is not just talking to you, but anyone, if you're thinking of going to university or college, don't skip over the financial parts just because you figure that you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Go and talk to one of the finance officers at the school or who's ever like the program director and ask what grants are available, because they'll have a book like this thick of grants available.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a person of color, for example, you're going to get something. If your parents were in the army, like a veteran, you're going to get something.
You're native and you have your card for the tax exemption.
Oh, for sure. That too. And they shouldn't have to pay for school at all, in my opinion. But I remember when I went to university, I was getting $160 a month just because my grandpa was in the army.
Wow.
So it was I think it was either the Legion. The Legion was paying me to go to school.
Yeah.
Though I still spent it all on booze anyway. Plus I had a couple of jobs and I completely wasted all that time. I would not suggest anyone goes to school if they're under 22, 23.
Well, hey, like you said, like you pointed out earlier, it helped build your people skills, and that's why it's so good to have a conversation with you. So you can be book smart, you can be life smart, you can be skills smart. There's all different things where when you go down that route, some of your other skills just kind of suffer in a way. We're all kind of a product of that. Like, so it's about finding that unique balance, but I think it was good that schooling was more conventional when I was going through it and when you were going through it, because I think I was able to pick up on more skills as opposed to somebody who's just strictly going to be nose in the book on a screen and scribbling a bunch of shit down. That's great. I'm sure you're good at your craft, but are you able to speak to people? Are you able to know if you're getting the short end of a deal? Are you able to communicate? Are you able to get so many points across that happen with actual real life interactions that you pick up along the way? There's some things that school just can't teach you, right? And you're totally right. If somebody's going to looking to expand on their education or whatever they're doing, they'd be surprised at what they could unearth if they just go to a financial officer or just dig around and see what grant you could get, where you could alleviate some of the stress, where you could get a break here and stuff like that, and cutbacks help. And you never know how much you could be helping your parents. A lot of kids are going to school and their parents are bankrolling it. And if you can save your parents $5,000, well, why wouldn't you? You're lazy. That's not really an excuse.
Yeah, but I know it's funny. All the wealthiest people I know they didn't really go to university.
Right.
They had like a natural entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
and they just followed their dreams and went ahead with it.
Yeah.
And now they're all doing pretty well. And you don't need to show anyone your certificate of like your degree when you reach a certain age. Exactly. That's all there is to it. But yeah, it's education is something you should never.
Allocation. At that point, it's more about asset allocation, like whatever you accomplish in a sense. And also, you're right. Like how many schools promise, doesn't matter, university, college, community college, doesn't matter. You will do this. We will give you a degree. You will pay this. You will get this, and you will have a job. You go to the program for X amount of years. You're done. Where's my job? Oh yeah, about that. That's not happening. So you just
and define employed. I mean, just because I went to university and get like a degree in sociology or anthropology doesn't mean I can be in that area. Like here I am working, selling like networking gear.
Right.
You know, it's a whole different ball of wax from what I went to school with.
You never know where you're going to land. I know a guy who went to school to be a pilot and they promised him a piloting program. That's a fairly practical job. We need pilots to fly planes. And it's not like, it was over the top. Like, it's not like it's a super artsy job. They might not be able to land something. And now he's working as a security guard at the airport. Like, how did you go from pilot to security guard? What the hell happened? You never know where you're going to land.
He's in his field, but dude, I got to get ready to fly here because it's almost 5. Look at the time.
That's right. Yeah, sorry about that. Just got a little caught up there. So tell people where they can find you and on Twitter and wherever social media and stuff like that to check out your content.
Well, I really like Twitter. Twitter's a cesspool. That's the problem. And it's a bit of a mud puddle, but I'm a pig. So I don't mind wallowing through there. You can find me on Twitter under Mike Dancy. You can go to MikeDancy.com, but I don't really update that page much. And then if you go to YouTube, it's just Mike's Tech Rescue, or just type in Mike Dancy and I'm going to pop up there. I try to respond to all comments in YouTube. On Twitter, I don't do tech support. So please don't contact me for tech support, because I swear almost every day on Facebook and everything else, I'll get like 5 to 6 messages saying, hey, my computer's dying or what's going on. I'm like, not my problem, dude. I don't do tech support.
All right, guys, no pesky questions like that, okay? And you heard it from him. He's happier than a pig in shit on Twitter. So now this has been Toronto's North American Podcast. You can always find us there at Toronto North on Twitter as well as on YouTube, and this will be posted there so you can check out this entire interview and go over it, and hopefully you enjoyed it and you got something out of this conversation. And honestly, I can't wait to have another session with you, because I had a lot of fun.
Well, next time I'll just do it stoned.
Okay, that's gonna make me a lot more 3D.
Yeah, we'll have like a Toronto podcast after 9.
Okay, and
you can just do it live, and we'll just light up a big fat joint.
Yeah, rated R. Okay, so salutations. Talk to you soon.
Yeah,
take care, buddy.
It was fun.